Hello fellow coffee botherers, in this video we're going to be talking about this, the DeLonghi Eletta Explore fully automatic bean to cup coffee machine. I reviewed the DeLonghi Rivelia recently and quite a few people responded to tell me they were trying to decide between that and this, so I thought it'd make sense to review this. And we'll also do a comparison video very soon, so subscribe and allow notifications to see that when it's done. Let's start out with the specs. 3.5-inch touchscreen interface with handy shortcut icons, hot latte crema one-touch milk carafe, cold latte crema one-touch milk carafe, loads of one-touch coffees, I lost count at about 30, including hot and cold, true microfoam milk texture, true double shot, kind of, bean adapt, assisted dialing in, smartphone app, 1.8 litre water tank, dreg drawer with a capacity for 14 used pucks, max cup height 16 cm officially, but up to about 19 cm depending on the width. 4 auto off settings from 15 minutes to 3 hours. This is the Ecamm 450. There's also the Ecamm 452. Other than a slightly different colour and aesthetics, the only real difference I can see is that this one, the 450, comes with a stainless steel travel cup. The 452 comes with a coffee pot. First impressions. This isn't cheap, but it doesn't look or feel cheap either, and it's made in Italy, which is quite rare for automatic machines. I think it looks fairly nice as far as fully automatics or super automatics as they're referred to across the pond go, and there are a couple of things that jump out as being slightly different, including the big tactile grind adjustment and the folding drip tray to allow for taller cups. You probably have questions, and I can probably guess what they are, so let's start with, how much is it? In the UK, the RRP at the time of filming is $999.99 for this version, the Ecamm 450, and $969.99 for the Ecamm 452. You will find deals for them though if you shop around, and it's about $1,800 in America. What's the app like? Tom from Tom's Coffee Corner says this is a turd, and Tom, thanks, I nearly spat my coffee out laughing when you said that. I'll link to Tom's video in the description. Honestly, as far as coffee machine apps go, I think it's okay, but it would be relatively pointless if it wasn't for the fact that there's one thing in particular that you can't do without it, which I'll talk about in just a sec. Really, apps on auto bean to cup machines are, in my opinion, mainly a gimmick at present. When they can take a cup out of the cupboard for you and put them on the drip tray, then maybe they'd be more useful. The DeLonghi app will actually turn the machine on, which is impressive. That's not usually the case. In theory, that could mean you could order your coffee from your app as soon as you wake up just by putting a cup on the drip tray the night before. In practice though, that wouldn't work because this happens when it turns on. So they'd either need to find a way to bypass the nozzles with the initial rinse so the rinsing water wouldn't end up in your cup, or they'd need some way to move a cup onto the drip tray after the rinse is finished. What's the machine interface like? Really, really good. Similar to the Rivelia, they've grouped drinks together on the menu for convenience. You can just tap to go, cold, hot and favourites. With to go, it asks you if you want hot or cold, and then you select the size of your travel cup, select your drink and you're done. Cold will just show you the cold coffee options, and hot will just show you the hot coffee menu, and favourites will only show you what you've added to your favourites. I think most people will probably use the favourites section the most. It's really easy to add a favourite, and most people will only have a few favourites, so less choice and faster to tell it which drink you want. Also, there are 4 user profiles, so each user will see their own favourites. The only issue I can see with the interface is that you can't use it to set up Bean Adapt, only to choose the Bean Adapt profile once you've set it up using the app. What's the Bean Adapt feature and espresso soul? Bean Adapt is a machine's built-in ability to help you to dial in with each bag of coffee beans. So you can go through the Bean Adapt setup, it'll help you select the right grind size for the beans you're using, and you can store those beans in the menu. And next time you use them, it'll tell you what grind size to adjust to. Espresso Soul confused me at first, but I get what it is now, I think. When you go through Bean Adapt, as well as grind size, it helps you to determine the strength and brew temperature, but these are set separately with every drink. So while the grind size you set it to will be the same for all drinks on the menu after you adjust the grind size in accordance with the Bean Adapt setting, the strength and temperature will depend on the setting in each drink. Espresso Soul, on the other hand, is an espresso made with all the Bean Adapt settings, including the strength and brew temperature. I can't quite get my head around this, to be honest. I would have thought if you set up and then select a Bean Adapt profile, all the drinks would automatically be made using an espresso with these settings. Espresso is a base of all the hot drinks, and strength, meaning dose, intensity and brew temperature are variables that work along with grind size to dial in. So why would you want to go through the steps of dialing in using Bean Adapt to then have most of these variables set up different depending on which drink you select? So I do like the Bean Adapt feature, but the only way to get the full benefit of it is to choose Espresso Sole each time and steam your milk and add your hot water separately. Otherwise, you'd have to go into your favourite drinks manually and individually change the other settings to be the same as the Espresso Sole settings. As I've mentioned, you have to use the app to set up Bean Adapt. You can select your beans from the user interface, but you have to use the app to set it up. On the Rivelia, which doesn't have the app, you can set this up on the machine interface. And I've already got chocolate brownie blend in there, so I want to add a new one, chocolate fondant blend. Add new beans. It's an Arabica and Robusta blend. Next, medium dark roast. Next, grind size is on 3.5 at the moment. Next, brew an espresso. It's asking me, how does it taste? I'm going to tell it tastes watery and weak. It is a bit weak. And it's tweaked it. It's tweaked the temperature to medium, the aroma to medium. And it's telling me to change the grind size to 2. Position's been changed. I'm going to save that as, I'm going to click on there, and it just so happened to have downloaded the image. Save beans. Now that the profile has been created, let's try it. If you're still not satisfied or want to refine a taste, you could tweak the details in the bean settings. Okie dokie. I do think the Bean Adapt is easier to do on the phone app than it is on the user interface on the Rivelia. Plus, you can take a photo of your bag of coffee and use that as your image for each. Which reminds me, let's have a word from our sponsor. That would be me.
It is I, Leclerc.
Well, I never.
My coffee beans from seaworks.co.uk are small, brown and bean-shaped. They're roasted every day. You'll usually find the roast date on the bag is the same as a dispatch date, and you'll probably love them. If you're unsure where to start, I'd recommend starting with Chocolate Brownie Blend, our best seller. They're one of the most forgiving beans I've ever used, they're very easy to dial in, and they're my favourite beans, especially for flat white. Want to try them? Of course you do. Use discount code YT25 for 25% off your first order. If you've tried them, let me know in the comments what you think. How loud is it? What's the warm-up time? What's the espresso temperature like? What's the Americano temperature like? What are the 4 tea temperatures? What about the milk temperature? How does the espresso taste? This will depend on the beans you're using, but this is definitely one of the best bean to cup machines I've used so far when it comes to the taste of the espresso in relation to true portafilter espresso, and the intensity of milk drinks as a result of that. It'll take a pretty big dose for an automatic bean to cup machine, up to about 15 or 16 grams for a double espresso, depending on the grind size, and it allows you to grind relatively fine enough to choke the machine, which I've done a couple of times. Which doesn't hurt the machine, so don't worry, this just means virtually no espresso will come out of the spouts, and you'll need to adjust the grinder more coarse. Can it do a true double shot? Yes, kind of, but espresso, 2 times espresso and Doppio Plus might not be quite what you're expecting them to be. You may think that 2 times espresso will be made with double the coffee beans as with espresso, and Doppio Plus might be a bigger dose than 2 times espresso. Actually, 2 times espresso appears to be made using a few grams more than espresso, and Doppio Plus seems to use the same dose as 2 times espresso. In the testing I've done, and this will change depending on the beans you're using and the grind size, I found that an espresso on the minimum volume and maximum strength gives me about 26 to 28 grams of espresso from about 11 to 12 grams of ground coffee. 2 times espresso on the minimum volume and max strength produces about 50 to 55 grams of espresso from around 15 to 16 grams, and Doppio Plus gives me a minimum amount of about 90 grams of espresso from about 15 to 16 grams. Does it matter how espresso, 2 times espresso and Doppio Plus relate to each other though? As long as you know what they are, I don't think so really. Just be aware that if you select a 2 times espresso and you don't stop the shot early, you'll be getting around a 1 to 3.5 ratio, and for a Doppio Plus, about a 1 to 6 ratio. If you want a 1 to 2 or 1 to 2.5, for example, a 30 or 40 gram espresso from a 15 gram dose, just get some brew scales and stop the shot early. What's the milk texture like? Very, very good. Along with the DeLonghi Rivelia, the best milk texture I've had from automatic bean to cup machines. Even good enough for some form of latte art. What are the cold drinks like? The cold coffee and cold espresso, as with the Rivelia, is a bit weird. It's just hot coffee and it tells you to put ice in your cup. If you choose extra cold, it tells you to add more ice. Genius. The coffee hits a cup at about 85 degrees Celsius, so that's just a bit strange. That's alright, but only because the machine told me to put 6 ice cubes in. If it hadn't have done that, it would have tasted terrible. Cold brew isn't quite cold, similar to the Ninja Luxe Cafe, so lukewarm brew I suppose, but as with the Ninja Luxe, I think if you're not a cold brew fanatic, you'll probably find cold brew quite a nice thing to drink on a hot day, as long as you fill your glass with ice. So it actually came out at 62, but it's 6 degrees in there actually. Ice is miraculous. What are the to-go coffees? These are bigger travel cup sized drinks made with double shots. You can adjust the volumes to fit your travel cup, so they're just a quick and convenient way to make bigger cups to go. Go where? Doesn't say, just go. And lifting the travel cup flap on the drip tray will give you space to comfortably fit cups up to 16 centimetres and at a push up to about 19 centimetres. What do I like about it? Overall, I'm impressed with this machine. I think it looks good, I like the big tactile grind adjustment and the fact that it will grind fine enough to choke the machine. I like the espresso it'll produce, it's up there amongst the best I've tasted from auto bean to cup machines. I really like the milk texture it'll produce and the fact that it comes with a cold latte crema milk carafe in case you fancy an iced latte or iced cappuccino. I like the interface, I think that's one of the easiest and least faffy touchscreen interfaces I've used, and the app is okay as far as apps go, but I don't think you really need to bother with it unless you want to set up the Bean Adapter profile. What don't I like about it? As I've mentioned, I think the cold espresso and cold coffee options are a bit odd, as with the Rivelia. I think it might be slightly annoying for some that they have to use the app purely to set up the Bean Adapter settings, given that other than that, the app really doesn't give you anything else that the machine interface doesn't. And as you saw, the milk temperature is going to be a bit cool for some people. It's hotter than some, including the Melita TS Smart, but if you want your milk at 60 degrees Celsius or higher, you'll probably need a machine with a steam wand. I'm not a huge fan of the minimum espresso volumes and the way the espresso and 2 times espresso relate to each other in terms of dose, and the Doppio Plus is a bit of an odd one. It's what I'd call a small, intense Americano, but I think a lot of people will expect this to be a double espresso and that the plus would relate to the dose, not the volume.
We have a comment on the Gaggia Carezza video from Swiss World Watches. How does the automatic tamper work, please?
The Carezza doesn't have an automatic tamper, so it doesn't work. Cheers. Thank you very much for watching, and if you think coffee is and you enjoyed this video, please drop us a like on the video, as it really helps. We've got tons of content about how to make better coffee at home to take you from beginner to home barista. We've got reviews and how-tos on the most popular machines. If you like the sound of that, click on my face to subscribe. Tatty Bye!